Hi, guys. Thank you for joining. This is Essence of Science. Today we're talking about how to trick yourself to be happy. I'm Amanda Armagast.
Dominic Moore.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. First of all, when we talk about the happiness, first you have to define what's the happiness.
When I chose this topic, I decided that when I'm saying happiness, I mean to be in a positive state of mind. And that's pretty much it. I don't mean going overboard or anything like that, but just being in a positive, content state of mind.
Yeah, but this is a podcast in the series of Essence of Science, right?
Yeah.
So obviously we can talk about lots of different aspects of the happiness. But Dominic, what do you think in the sense of science? What's happiness?
An appropriate level of chemicals in my brain.
Very good description, actually. Now, in a way, everything, all our emotions are a very complicated balance between signals and chemicals in our brain. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so is unhappiness, or so is lots of other problem. But happiness, obviously, it has many aspects, psychological aspect of happiness, and we have been able to actually connect some of them. Like there is a happiness being content that you are next to the person you love, and you have a connection. We understand that is related to a series of hormones, but most likely related to what hormone? Oxytocin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oxytocin. What's a different name for oxytocin? That's the magic of our biology, that our nature is just reusing and reusing and reusing things. What else oxytocin does in our body?
I don't know.
Helps with pain.
It can, but that's related. Pain, content, and so on. It's all content. A few work that oxytocin does, it has a regulation in our how much sodium we absorb from our urine. Yeah, why would a hormone that help mother and child bond and be this convey the closeness, protectiveness, being protected, or two lovers when they are connected. What does it have to do with regulating the sodium level in your blood and how much urine you produce or not?
Honestly, I'm not sure, but it is wild that you just mentioned it, because after you said that, I did remember it, because I also know you can give it for people who as an anticholinergic, and they get just facial sweats for some sort of anxiety. So
Wait,
it's a strange thing.
What do you mean?
Just multiple uses for oxytocin, but go ahead.
Body recycles, or biology recycles. Now, let me tell you something that what it brings, how far biology is just. There's a word, actually, I'm reading a book about that called kludge. Have you heard of that word?
Never.
K-L-U-G-E, kludge?
K-L-U-G-E.
No?
Mm-mm.
So
it sounds a lot like a kludge, just beat something with something.
Or maybe it's spelled kludge.
I don't know. Well, I mean, no, that's a different word.
So
what does it mean?
Well, you want to Google it, what it means?
No, can you just tell us?
I can't tell you that, but curious. If you put haphazardly things together to provide a function, what you put together haphazardly to provide something that has a function called kludge.
Yeah.
I think it's spelled kludge or kludge. I don't know, but I think
spelled the exact same way you told me, and that you're right.
Definition.
So either you invented it and you planted it there for me to find.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Our body is a kludge. Our brain is a kludge. It recycles. Like there is a piece of tissue in the developmentally. If you take that piece of tissue from a mouse and put it on an elephant will grow another arm. And here we are. As a matter of fact, if you take it from an insect and put it on elephant will grow another arm.
Oh.
Ear. They did it with ears, actually. I'm just exaggerating.
It's kind of wild.
It is wild. And that says the extent of... So let's come back with that and talk happiness, hormonal balance. The balance of those hormones in our brain gives us what state of mind we are in. Mm-hmm. I can give you example after example after example that that is really true. Like there was this rhesus monkeys. They put it in a room, and there are two different. And we cannot do those tests these days, but they used to be able to do that. They put an electrode in a certain area of the brain, and then the monkey has two choices only. Cannot do both. Can go to one place, push a button and get food, or can go to the other place, push a button and it get electric stimulation to that part of the brain. All those monkeys starved to death.
Yep,
They preferred to push the button and then to go eat. Wouldn't that be great if you could do that for problem of obesity?
Yeah.
But it has a lots of side effects. So we can do it with monkeys, not with human yet, but maybe in the future. So more or less, we are electrical and chemical balance in our brain that we understand a lot of it, and we understand a lot of it very little. But this hormonal balance, oxytocin is one part of it. There is another happiness, kind of happiness, and they are dopaminergic.
Okay.
Dopamine is another neurotransmitter. There's another, see, what we clutch as happiness is a combination of many different state of mind that we just call them happiness. But each area is governed by one hormone or two hormones, and some areas are combination of many hormones and a situation, but all of that ends up in the brain to be a hormonal, chemical, or electrical balance. Now, I can tell you for sure that your brain doesn't care how that balance is produced. Are you full because you ate a beautiful steak? Or are you full because you take Ozempic? Or are you full or happy because electrode is there and somebody activated that thing? It has no way, once that practically path is started and activated, your brain doesn't really have any way to go back and check, but there's no food there, and so on and so forth. But eventually, obviously, that area that send the signal will send a new signal, say, okay, I'm still hungry. It's still no glucose here, and so on. But the brain doesn't really care. So that brings us to an area that most of doctors at my level and caliber dismiss, which is like all this esoteric stuff. We don't believe in that. And
like what? Give an example.
Like meditation, like Eastern healing, and so on and so forth. We don't care about that. But you remember we talked about that the monkeys preferred the pushing the button than eating? Now imagine once you get awareness about how you control your internal mechanism. For people who are interested, I mean, that's obviously a movie. There's a movie called Lucy, where she literally, based on some other additional chemical that she took, drug she took, she can control the unawareness part of her brain. Now, and there's some truth in that. Less than 5% of what's happening in our brain and our body that we are aware of. Everything else, you are sitting in a fantastic machine and you have only the steering wheel in your hand and clutch and brake and the gear shift and so on. 1,000 things are happening electrically, and even you're sitting literally in your car. 1,000 things are happening. You have no awareness. You have no idea, but they're working, so you can sit there and control it. This is what our body and our brain is. Like your blood pressure. Can you control your blood pressure and heart rate?
Sometimes.
If you give a feedback, they have done those studies. Now, if you sit there and every time your blood pressure and heart rate goes up, there is a visual kind of clue about that. And you actually people can learn with time that they can control their blood pressure to a certain degree.
And your heart rate.
And your heart rate. Well, no, I'm talking about the scientific studies that they put your heart rate on the thing and you put through biofeedback, meaning that you look at it and then and in your brain, you finally find out what you can do to bring your heart rate, blood pressure up or down
Yeah.
based on actual visual feedback.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the monks that were studied that they meditated enough to slow down their heart rate.
That is as well, we know about that, but I'm talking about the regular people that within day or two. Now, there's another study that's amazing that shows how we can adapt to new things and discover new things in our body. Like there is a study where they put a prism on people. You know that when I see that in my retina, it's upside down, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Correct?
Flip it back here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it flips again a few times in our brain, the signal. But what I see here, I'm used to this, right? Now, there's a prism you put on that makes everything upside down for you. At beginning, people are confused, but after a few days, that's normal for them. And then when they get the prism off, then they get confused again. That is how adaptive our brain is. So we know if you have a direct feedback, you can control areas of your vegetative body, brain, that unconscious brain, that you can control areas that you didn't think you can control.
That kind of makes sense. It's a little bit like inverted flight control. I know that's a pretty base idea, but that's essentially the idea of move stick up, brings plane other direction kind of deal.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the idea. No, let's put those information that we gathered so far together. Happiness is a balance, chemical and electrical balance in your brain. You can manipulate that without with external clues like electricity, medication, but you can as well have an internal mechanism to literally manipulate that state and achieve goals that you would think that you can only achieve with a bit like hunger. Okay, you always think to get rid of the hunger, you have to eat something. Yeah, that's it. What the nature of the hunger is. Or now we are fooling it with Ozempic or other medication.
Some people fool it by drinking water.
You can do it to a certain degree. Okay, some people control it by putting a heavy thing on their stomach. We know now. If you put compression or stretch the stomach, that as well give you some satiety. But as well, what I'm getting at, you can by biofeedback, even regular people can give themselves biofeedback just by using their internal mechanism to control their hunger. It's not always easy. If it was, everybody would use that. But it's possible. I'm just saying that it is possible. Now, let's go back to happiness. We know that happiness has many, many different aspects to it. There's an electrical and chemical balance in our brain. Each of them has a different path. But now imagine you put those paths together and internally you work on that. You use, we talked about the biofeedback, like you have a red and green line going up in the monitor, your blood pressure goes up and down, and you want to have that blood pressure in certain range. People can do that, surprisingly. Now, imagine you have a state of mind that what you see there, you simulate that in your brain, because what you see there at the end of the day is a simulation in your brain anyways. Then you get rid of that external thing completely. And now to come to something that in Buddhism they call mastery of your senses. And that's what they achieve with meditation. And then you can calm yourself down. Then you don't need the medication that do it for you. You can control your blood pressure. You don't need medication that do it for you. You can control your happiness. Well, all of a sudden, a multi-$100 billion industry is becoming irrelevant just by meditation. Now, is it easy? No, it's not easy, but it's achievable.
You can control your happiness by controlling your thoughts. Your thoughts are your responsibility. They're things that you're thinking of. So if you can stop your thoughts in their tracks, you can change the way you're thinking. So and that's, for example, if I'm annoyed that I keep getting interrupted, I can remind myself that someone next to me thinks that what they have to say is really important, so I should let them say it.
She's talking about me right now.
Could have been me.
Could have been. But if I can stop my thoughts and then think about something happier.
Yeah, you can. That's the whole. There's a field in actual medicine and that we deal with that. It's called psychology.
Yeah.
That's how the field of psychology works. So controlling and breaking certain loops and activating other loops, speech therapy, behavioral therapy, and so on. All of that is actually latching on our internal mechanism to activate or deactivate certain area of the brain to produce happiness.
And similar to that also is like laughter yoga, where during laughter yoga you sit there and you actually force yourself to laugh ridiculously. So you say like, huh, huh, huh. And you do enough fake laughter that it actually makes you real laugh. And then the real laughter tricks you into being happy because you're laughing. So something must be happy around you.
Well, I'm sure you have heard "fake it until you make it," right?
Oh,
So,
of course.
well, that's there's a background to that. Fake it until you make it. So, meaning that, as a matter of fact, it's all proven that by just expressing some symptoms of something, your body back feels what was before that usually end up to bringing you to that symptom, like what you just said. You just pretend the mood or behavior of a laughter, and then if you do it long enough, then again you remember, has all related to that. Once your brain is in that state, what took you to that state becomes less relevant.
Yeah. It's the ends, the means. I mean, they're great, but
it can go the other way around too, actually. I feel like if you think negatively a lot, you'll naturally be a little bit more negative. No, I'm not. I actually wasn't talking about you. But some people I know, nothing is ever good enough for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're in that state of mind,
I know we've talked a lot about sort of the beginning of happiness and all these sorts of things, like medications. I eat a chocolate bar. I'm sure I'm going to feel a little bit something there. And we also talked a little bit of the sort of the terminal end downstream. If I were able to just look at something and just kind of wake up in the morning and go, today's happy, and brain chemistry follows suit. What about the middle ground, those sort of crutches where you hear about exercise releases dopamine, that kind of deal? Like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I go outside, I go for a walk. That makes me a little happier. To me, that sounds like somewhere in between monkey pushes button and monkey eats food. It sounds like monkey, I don't know, drops bowling ball, and watches this whole thing, then push button.
Yeah, like both things are adding to the happiness. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It sounds more like a natural crutch than it is, say, medication or something like that.
Let's talk about that. You go for a run, you get happy. Why?
Two thoughts. One is actually a little bit more recent. The first is, naturally, you go for this run, your body releases these chemicals that
catecholamines, literally,
because you want to survive. Running from things helps you survive. It helps you kill something or helps you run from something that's going to kill you. Easy, right? Want that to be encouraged, so that would make you happy naturally. That makes sense.
I survived! Yay!
Yeah. There's also a little bit more recent studies, and this goes a little bit more into weight loss, but the idea is if you're spending your energies on certain activities like running, you're spending them less on things that, like normal levels of cortisol, and inflammation and all this other fun stuff that brings you down. So
if you're spending an hour running, you're spending one less hour on the computer.
Yeah, you're spending one less hour doing something that your body may not like doing in general. It may be a negative. It is definitely a positive.
Yeah, I see what direction you're going.
So kind of wonder about where things like that fit in, because as a society, I think we spend a lot of time, we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about realizing the pathways and
You're right.
knowing, like blood pressure and the heart rate. Once you see kind of where the green bar is and you get used to that, you can hit the green bar more regularly. I think we spend a lot more time vilifying things like medications and whatnot, and glorifying things like go touch grass, and not enough talking about there's number 3. This one's over here.
Yeah, there's a middle ground. You can take medications and touch grass.
Because At the end of the day, not everybody can go for an hour run.
Okay, well, no, let's go to the basic again, science. You're talking about science here.
Mhm.
Now, can you please, with your right index finger, touch your nose? How many connections do you think is activated in your brain? You can take it off now.
Waiting for explicit instructions.
How many connections do you think in your brain activated for you to do that?
27.
Well,
It's a complete guess.
yeah, let's make it like 100,000 times more.
Okay, a little higher.
Yeah. Are you aware of those connections? You're not, but they happen. That is how your brain, your thoughts turn into motor action, then get coordinated in cerebellum, and then those pattern of behavior, pattern of motion get sent to your finger. As a matter of fact, we talked about it in other podcasts, that it deactivate hundreds of thousands of muscle fiber. So only the one that bring your only it limits all the others, that only the muscle that end up doing this are activated or stay active, so you can do that. And then you can do it even with your eyes closed. Then there are even more things and so on. You are not aware of any of those paths between, but you still can do that. And this is an action, is a motor action. But there are so many other action in our brain, like our thoughts. That is an action. So an action doesn't need to be necessarily a motor action. But the fact is that our motor action are so important for us, because without motor action, you don't get water, food, and so on, you die. Okay? But our thoughts, they don't have such a direct impact on our survival. They do, but not such a direct, like you don't get the water, you die. Okay, so for that reason, there is so much more variation in it, in our control of our thoughts and our internal psychology, because the connection between survivability is not a straight line like our motor action. And so, but at the end of the day, what I'm getting at, those paths are there, like same path that control your finger. In my opinion, I don't have any clinical or scientific result to say that. In my opinion, the path to control your thoughts are actually shorter than the path to your motor action, because for a thought to be a thought, it has to stay only in our cortex, whereas for a motor action to become a motor action, it has to go from our cortex to our midbrain to our cerebellum, utilize those patterns, go to our spinal cord, activate another thing, then go to our muscle and so on. So in a way, I think those paths that to control your thoughts, to bring yourself happiness, theoretically are shorter, not easier to control, because again, nature didn't account for that, but they're easier, they're a shorter path to control that. Now, there is a thing that moves outside of science, and we should talk about that in one of our other podcasts, called the Enlightenment. And in Buddhism, in meditation and so on, they talk a lot about enlightenment. In a religious context as well, they talk about enlightenment. What is enlightenment?
Well, when you're enlightened, I don't think you are really happy. I think you're content. When you're enlightened, my understanding of enlightenment is you have all these phases that you go through in your life that make you like, I don't really know how to describe it, but like if enlightenment is here, you're born here. You need to work towards becoming enlightened and pretty much getting these layers of perceived ideas off of you. And then once you become enlightened, you're a lot more light, but things don't impact you as much. So receiving a gift, it's not going to make you extremely happy that you received this gift, but you're grateful that you received the gift. I don't really know how to
depend on the gift, right? Enlightenment.
So my thoughts on enlightenment, it's the fullest extent of awareness and understanding of yourself, things around you, and of being without boundaries, borders, or limitations. That I know that kind of sounds vague.
Let's dissect that. No, I like it. Let's dissect that. Say the same thing sentence by sentence. Let's dissect that. Go ahead.
The fullest sense of awareness, understanding about yourself and your surroundings without borders or limitations. I think that's pretty much what I said.
Yeah.
That's good.
There's a show called The Good Place. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
For people who haven't, okay, that is a how do you say that when you don't tell them if you haven't watched that? Teaser, no.
Oh, just if you're gonna watch A Good Place and you haven't watched it,
Spoilers.
Spoiler.
Forward.
Spoiler alert. It's a funny show and so on, but there's something at the end of the last season. Have you watched it all?
Yeah, I think so.
So,
Well, they're in purgatory, aren't they?
no, actually, at first they think they're in good place, but they're actually in bad place. Then they go to purgatory, and then they go to good place, and then they live there for almost ever, and then each of them individually, they are enlightened, they are ready. And the enlightenment, in the sense of the Buddhism, it has a lot with the Buddhism and so on. What happens in Buddhism if you are, your reincarnation? What most of people don't know about reincarnation, you get reincarnated if you are not enlightened, if you are a bad person.
Yeah, hope you like a worm.
You need to do more. You need to try again.
You need to try again. That is the universe gives you another chance. What happens if you are a good person and you are enlightened? What happens?
It's the end of the line.
End of the line. You become one with the universe, but you stop to exist. You're done. It's not like you go to paradise and start one more thing and so on. It's not like, you literally become nothingness. Now, go to 100 people, say, if you're a good person, you become nothing. But if you're a bad person, you come back in a different life. I guarantee you, 98% of them, they say, well, let's be a bad person.
Yeah.
I become nothing. See, the difference between understanding when you are full, when you are a full person, when you are enlightened, it's okay to be done. It's okay to go away. The ability to be content with being nothingness. You moved above happiness. You moved above pleasure. You moved above all this, what makes us human, good or bad. But as well, you have far moved above anger and rage and needs and jealousy and so on.
You kind of just are.
Well, actually, you are not, because then you vanish into universe. And you understand your atom become universe, but you as a person are gone. Are you okay with that?
Me? No.
I am okay with that, to be honest.
Then you're enlightened.
But I don't think I'm enlightened. But I'm okay with reaching that.
Well, the idea of that is way beyond what we can describe just in a podcast. But the idea of once you move above those individuals, once you understand the happiness is just a signal in my brain. Once you understand that you move, your consciousness goes above these human needs, and you're content with the idea of nature taking its course. And I think that is what they refer in the Buddhism to enlightenment. I cannot say as a matter of fact, I'm just the opposite of content. For me, one summit is like, I used to do climbing and so on. And it was a beautiful place in Iran called Darband. If you are there, go visit. And there was 2 places in Tehran you would go for climbing. One place was for chic people, fashionable. They go and just show and be shown.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yes. And there are lots of people there. There's another place that's lonely and so on. But what I loved about that lonely place, Darband, not Darake, and you go there, you go to one summit, and there's another one. Then there's another one. Then there is another one. It never ends. It never ends. So I'm just the opposite of content. I go to a summit, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. Now, being enlightened is not being lazy, because yeah, some people go to the first one and say, I'm tired. I don't want to do that. No, but the idea, knowing there is one after another, it's okay not to achieve them. It's not, it is okay. It's not, you see that there? Lots of people as well turn it into a business opportunity, this an idea of enlightenment. I don't talk about the material business opportunity. I'm talking about like a way of life, just justified to be lazy in life. And I'm content with that. So I'm not going to clean the kitchen, I'm just playing it down. Okay. I'm content with that. I don't need to do this and that. I'm just going to have vacation or sit on the beach and have my martini and so on. No, but there is a sense of enlightenment that you put your brain activities, your brain chemistry at the level that your consciousness is above those circuitry that give you certain feeling and so on. And once you are there, you can sit like the Buddhist monk did in Vietnam. You can sit there, say, my life has a purpose. I want to bring awareness to the suffering of others. So you sit there, you pour gasoline on yourself, not because you're depressed, not because you're chemically sick, not because you don't like to love or live, but you think, I am in a place that I understand all of that. And now I'm going to sit down. I'm going to pour gas on myself. I'm going to be so calm when I'm burning alive. And 50, 60 years later, we still have that picture that gives us motivation about the horror of war. So that person used that, his enlightenment. Now, there are as well other people who are just chemically depressed and that's their way out. But that's different things, okay? But trying to make a point that lives on and on in our conscious generation after generation, and being able to sit there that calm to do that, and that is enlightenment. I am far, far, far away from that in my life. I understand that scientifically. I understand that probably in our brain circuitry more than most of people. But I understand it enough to know that I'm far away from
But
that.
do you even strive to reach that?
I have other goals.
That's what I'm
I have
saying.
other goals in my life than being enlightened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I
Not
decide-
everyone wants to be enlightened.
No, most of people don't even know what that is.
Well, and not everyone needs, and not everyone should be.
No,
Everyone has their
it's a
own
path. Every person have a path in their life.
So there's nothing wrong with not even wanting to be enlightened. There's nothing wrong with
No,
having
that's
no
not a
desire.
judgmental
And there's also
call.
nothing wrong with wanting to be enlightened and not wanting to reach every summit. Everyone has their own life balance and their own kind of path that they need to take.
And I absolutely agree with that this is one path that one can take in their life. What I do have problem with is that people use that the whole concept to turn it into a business opportunity, like all these ashrams, and you go there and the guru is literally having an orgy with everybody there.
Yeah,
and
I have a problem with them taking advantage of the word enlightened and then taking advantage of people by using that term, and then they're like kind of tarnishing like the idea of any of that.
Any idea of that, yes, tarnishing any idea of that is associated with this word enlightenment, Buddhism, and so on. Practically, and that is the lazy route. They appear to be enlightened, but then in actual life they do everything just the
they're
opposite.
The furthest. Yeah. I think if you're taking advantage of people, you are the furthest from enlightenment.
You're not above it. Let's put it this way. We just talked about it's about being above that. Now, but now again, this is not happiness. Being enlightened, you're way above those levels. Like,
happiness is back there. Like,
happiness
you move past that.
Yeah, you way past.
Is happiness? Do you think happiness is kind of elementary, like in comparison to being enlightened?
It is an elementary feeling.
Yeah.
Happiness is an elementary feeling, but there are things. like, let's put it this way. Our alphabet is made of, 26 letters, okay? That 26 letters are elementary, and you combine them, you get things.
Mm-hmm.
And happiness is like a letter.
Mm-hmm.
But once you are enlightened, you don't only speak the alphabet of English, but you speak as well, or alphabet of our feeling, but you speak alphabet of many other, you understand the concept of the language. It is at a different level. It's not the same level. But yes, happiness is an elementary. No, well, again, you have to cut the happiness in the individual pieces that we talked at the beginning of the podcast. Like, there's the happiness of being content, oxytocin. There's the happiness of you running and it gives you a boost. That's catecholamine. There's another happiness that it's just dopamine based kind of. There are different things, but each of them are elemental. If you put them together, those things, then they become what we colloquially refer to happiness, and that happiness, which is made of individual pieces, it's pretty down below to be a element of elemental of our feelings. So is the anger. So is but as well anger and so on is it has parts and so on.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking while you were talking about that, I was thinking about psychology, and in psychology, we learn that anger is a secondhand emotion or a secondary emotion. So anger is not there's like primary and secondary. Anger is not the first emotion you even feel. You feel betrayed, or you feel disappointed, or you feel something else, and that's why you feel angry. So you're not just angry, you're angry because of a different emotion.
Yeah, you could say that probably, but rage, anger, and so on. By the way, where is it in our brain? Is it managed? Anger, rage, and so on.
Is that here?
In the heart.
Oh, cute. Amygdala, which is very close to the hippocampus on each side. You have two of that, and it's deep, and it's amygdala is close to hippocampus. Hippocampus is memory. So, in that sense, you're right. It's secondary in a sense. You get a sensory input that you give me the MF word, show me the middle finger on the road. And my hippocampus memory goes and connect me to all those memories that I got the middle finger, and none of them were good. And they come back with the things. And then amygdala says, I got to do something about that. And then I bypass you on the road and I show you the middle finger and so on. So it's a very memory oriented. And so, whereas I agree with you, happiness is more basic. Rage and anger, it needs some memory comparison.
You need an input.
It goes, and so I compare all those situations where I had similar experience, and then it comes back, nope, you gotta do something about it. Yeah, so in that sense, makes sense. Okay.
The reason I actually wanted to talk about happiness and tricking your mind into being happy is I do have a controversial opinion on happiness. Which
is it scientific?
I think in this room I'm going to be disagreed with, but I do think that happiness is a choice, or it can be a choice up to 1%. I think sometimes if you have like a chemical imbalance, then it's not your choice to have a chemical imbalance. But for instance, for myself, I used to have a lot of depression and I was actually medicated, but I decided that my medication wasn't having any positive impact on me. And I completely changed my mindset, the way I think, the way I react, and my first thoughts coming, like right when I wake up, my first thought is going to be something positive, period. I never think sad stuff right away when I wake up. And I think that that's a state of mind. And it did take a lot of training, like probably 10 years of training at least.
Meditation?
No, being happy.
Oh, no, but how did you train yourself? Did you do it just by
by changing my thought process? Like I have a few tricks that I do. If I'm going to say something negative, I try and sandwich it. That's something that I use. I use that term around here a lot. I say something positive first, then negative, then positive. Obviously, it's not going to just happen naturally. You have to think about doing that. So I don't always do it. I'm always giving myself compliments.
I sandwich it as well. Something negative, something negative, something negative.
Yeah, it's a negativity sandwich. But I think that positivity and happiness can be a choice if you allow it to be.
It's kind of like for your story, at least there, you started off with the medication, which essentially you found there was a button. Your button didn't hit the right spot. Wasn't doing the thing. So instead, you found a way to see the green bar there and kind of put your mental state within there more regularly.
True.
My comment on that is for that Buddhist monk that burned himself. Everything is a choice. He can just decide. I want to be happy. He will be happy. He can decide. I want to be content. He will be content. That monk has such a mental capacity that can decide, I do not want to have pain, and then they can open up his belly, do a surgery, and then close it back up. He's in such a control, but for most of regular people like myself, it takes a lot of work to get that, to make that a choice.
And a lot of practice. You have to constantly remind yourself. I actually used to set reminders on my phone for certain hours. Every hour I would have a different type of positive reminder. It's totally a choice. I think that your emotions are totally a choice. Even anger. If sometimes I have like someone that I'll fight with, and I'm usually only mad for like 1 or 2 hours, which sounds like 1 or 2 hours does sound like a long time, but I know people who will be literally mad all day, mad until the next day. But for me, it's like, why do I want to be mad?
Yeah.
I actually don't. I actually really want to be happy. I want to have good feelings. And that took a lot of practice too.
Yeah. Can you please practice on when you get hungry that you control that a little better?
I have practiced, and you're actually lucky I'm at this point. So
good. Can I say something about Gremlin, or is it a different podcast?
You can.
Well, for a long time, Amanda's middle name on my phone was Amanda Gremlin Armagos, because she's such a sweet person. But at certain point, when the blood sugar goes at certain level, then for people who know the movie Gremlin, that sweet thing turns into a...
Don't feed him after midnight.
Yeah, don't. Well, it's a different category.
I love eating after midnight. It's my prime time.
You're not beating the allegations.
So please, let's work a little on the meditation for that as well.
Yeah, but
so you don't turn into Gremlin.
But answer this: after my needs are met, am I still?
No.
Okay.
Well.
So happiness, everyone. Yeah.
How you want to feel? Maybe I want people to know I'm hungry. Feed me.
Okay. Well, I think it's 3:20, and I haven't.
Do you think it's 3:20?
I don't know what time it is.
He's looking at his phone.
Oh.
Thank you guys for watching. This was Essence of Science, and we talked about happiness. I'm Amanda Armagos.
Dominic Moore.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence of Science. Okay.
See ya.